So in this dream, there was this kid, Colin, who I don't really know, but he was important in the dream somehow. His parents had a large motorhome, and they offered to let me borrow it and take it up to this cabin that I had with my wife. And I was really quite excited that they allowed me to borrow it. And all of these kids that I had, even extras that I didn't even have, there were just kids, a lot of kids. They were just really excited at the thought of traveling in something like that. It was big, it was comfortable, they were excited to go. So we got out to this cabin. But when we were there, the kids took the motorhome and they tried to drive it. And the ground was wet because it had snowed and the snow was starting to melt. And so it was seeping down into the dirt, making it really muddy. Well, they were driving it and slid off the road down a small hill, and at the bottom landed in all of this snow. And there was snow there, and obviously, like I said, it was melting, so there were little patches of dirt here and there. And there was also in the middle of this clearing at the bottom of this hill that they slid down a hot spring that was there. And so they couldn't get it out of the situation. And so I went down there to try to get it out, even though they couldn't get it out. When I tried, I couldn't get it out either. And it almost got worse. Kind of started sliding further and further and closer to this hot pot that was nearby. I got out of the motorhome to assess the situation and walk around this RV looking at it. And so getting out and looking at it, I wondered if these hot pots were acidic or not. The kind you can get in and enjoy and, chill in, or one of those ones like in Yellowstone where you just don't get in it because it'll, melt your skin. So I got out to look at that, and I noticed off in the distance on the far side of this little valley, there were other kids from some other group or some other cabin, and they were sliding down this hill. Yeah, as I was assessing the situation with the RV, trying to figure out how to get it back on the dirt, I noticed how close it was to the hot pots, and when I was walking around it, I just happened to kick some of this water from the hot pots up onto my leg. And it didn't seem to burn my legs. And so, when they were in the water, it didn't melt. So that was good. At least I got an answer to that. And I noticed that the tires were also not in the water. And even though I had kicked the water, it wasn't wet. My legs weren't wet. It was interesting. And so just by walking around and assessing it, this next time when I got in and just punched it forward, I was able to get it out of the snowdrift, get it out of the mud, and get it back on the road. I have no idea what changed other than I walked around, saw it, kicked this hot pot, got wet, but didn't get wet. And then essentially we got in there to go meet up with some of these family members that were there that my wife wanted to meet up with. And we just couldn't get quite, out of the cabin area to meet up with these people because we had just gotten stuck. So when we got a hold of them, they weren't bothered at all that we weren't able to get there in time and meet up with them, even though we had tried, apparently, in the dream. The idea came that I had tried multiple times to get there. And even though we were trying to get there now multiple times, wasting a lot of time, we weren't able to get there. But they weren't bothered that much. So since we were there, at the cabin, spent so much time getting out of the mud, everyone just ran around. We just decided that we were going to have fun there instead of stressing ourselves about getting somewhere else. And so, since there was fun to be had there was snow, there were hot pots that weren't acidic, there were other kids across the way playing, there was a cabin, a motorhome, and there were guitars for some reason sitting around. We just decided to play. One of my daughters decided to whine about something. And I said, well, go enjoy the motorhome. I'm doing the best I can. And that was essentially the gist of the dream. And that's how it ended. Essentially, what pops up here to me is that with like this motorhome, it's a large borrowed responsibility. So for me, dreams, vehicles often represent a life path or how you get around. Now, in this case, this vehicle that allowed me to transport myself belonged to some other person's parents. So it seemed to pull for me that I have this feeling of needing to live up to others' expectations or manage heavy situations that just they're not mine. You know, borrowed it, but it wasn't mine, and it kept getting stuck, and that was frustrating. And so it's how was I handling borrowed responsibilities in my life? I needed to analyze that. And then there was also these Hotpots, which essentially at that position, I saw them, I noticed them, and I wasn't sure whether they were for relaxation or they were really risky. It was one of those two. Is it a risk or relaxation? And they are this paradox between danger and enjoyment. It's the mystery aspect. I was worried about them hurting me or hurting the kids, and it points to this fear of getting into, in quotes, like hot water, how we can all get into hot water, or are we facing these unpredictable consequences? And then also, you know, the mystery of is it or isn't, and the only way I could end up actually figuring out whether it was good or bad was essentially coming in contact with it. And the water in this case was strangely not even wet. It's one of those weird dream sensations. You get water all over you, but it isn't wet. Essentially, it seemed to indicate to me that I was dipping my toes into an emotional situation or a risky situation, and I feel somewhat protected or detached from the actual impact, which was nice in my waking life because essentially it plays out exactly where I have situations where I'm able to go and try things out, and they are risky, but I'm detached from the worst of the consequences that might come from that. And then there was also in this dream this obligation, which was like to go and visit these other extended relatives and see them. And we tried and tried, but it ended up feeling like a waste of time to end up going and fulfilling this obligation to be there with them, trying to meet up with this external expectation. But in the end, we only found that the person didn't even care, right? There's this shift in the dream at that point from trying to overextend and exhaust myself to get this RV out so that we can get out of this really cool situation with, this area to play in, cool hot pots that weren't dangerous, a cabin and a motorhome, and a bunch of guitars, which I like playing guitars. So that was important for me. That these expectations that we perceive from other people often are not really that important. And if we just stop and relax and get into this staycation, we're going to be much more happy. It's going to be much more fulfilling. So this part of the dream at the end, where all this stuff is happening, where there's these borrowed responsibilities, a borrowed RV, we are trying to do everything for these other things, and it felt like it needed to look a certain way. But in the end, it was, no, chill out, enjoy the snow, enjoy these, hot pools, enjoy the guitars, enjoy the cabin, enjoy the RV, enjoy playing, have a good time. And then when there was complaining, it was just, hey, I'm just doing my best. It was me giving myself permission to stop struggling against the snow of life. It just makes you feel like you're spinning your wheels and just exist in the moment and have a good time. So that was that dream. And so yeah, I am trying to enjoy the moment and live where I am and do the best that I can. And because I am where I am, just enjoy it. Doesn't mean you don't stop working or, improving, but there's only so much you can do. And don't let these external expectations ruin it. Life can be a lot of fun. All right, cool. Have a good one, guys.